Warning, this content may be upsetting or disturbing to some audiences. What's the scariest thing you've woken up to in the middle of the night? We have a window AC unit basically right above our bed. One night, ice must have gotten built up inside, and it fell onto the fan that blows the air out. I remember hearing a loud bang and then being sprayed in the face by liquid. F-king terrifying. Open up. Please. We have a search warrant. It was about 6 a.m., accompanied by banging that was loud as shit. Turns out it was for the apartment beneath my bedroom window, but I sat straight up and my first thought was, oh no, they got me. Despite being one of the least shady people alive. I had stumbled downstairs to get some water from the tap at about 2 a.m. I look out of the window directly in front of me and stare into pitch darkness. You can't see anything more than a few feet. Turn the tap off, look up, and there's a dude's face just staring back at me. He's so close he's practically got his nose to the glass. A face that makes Gollum look like a model. This guy is obviously a serial killer, at least that's what my sleep-addled mind was thinking. I SHD myself and just keep staring. He's also shitting himself and keeps staring. Until he starts pointing. He's pointing at the outside tap. He smiles at me, this black-toothed grin, so I smile back and nod. He fills his water bottles and buggers off back to the woods. Over the next few months I got to know them all and they were super nice. They'd come for water and I'd leave them little care packages of food until they moved on to somewhere else. Presumably to scare the SHD out of someone else in the middle of the night. My ceiling fan pulling off my ceiling and hanging a few inches from my face. My daughter had a ring around the Rosie doll when she was little. You put the doll's hands together and it would sing the song. Anyway, she left it out outside one night apparently, and the dew in the grass shorted it out. It was creepy and we didn't have an outdoor light in the backyard, so I had to go by myself with a flashlight and search the yard for this creepy doll. Woke up to the feeling of something on my face, tried to brush it off, and in my half-asleep state thought it was attacking me. Cue absolute freak out because something is crawling all over me and I can't get it off, just for me to find out it was my own hand that had gone numb while I was asleep. Daughter had this Minnie Mouse baby doll that crawled on all fours when you touched a button on its back. Wife and I woke up at 2 a.m. to the sound of the doll's creepy laugh. Went out to the living room and the doll was walking straight into the corner. The button wasn't broken or anything, so I'm not sure what happened. Donated it. Someone slamming on the door of the apartment across the hall screaming, "Your apartment is on fire." It sounded like it was on mine. Woke up and immediately started choking on smoke. The fire alarm then went off. Everything ended up being okay. Someone flicked a cigarette butt off their balcony. It landed on the one a few floors beneath it and set their patio furniture on fire, hence why someone saw it before the alarm went off. I'm sure there were worse things. But one time when I was a kid, my parents placed a full body shaped Elma balloon in my room while I was sleeping. Ever woken up to a floating body? I woke up to my mom panicking and locking my door and asking me to call the cops. It was around 3 a.m. and someone was trying to choke her and possibly do worse. She said that she heard someone open her bedroom door and lay on the corner of the bed. She managed to kick them off and ran downstairs into my room to protect me. Once the police came, they did a search outside our home and found nothing. This man went to church every Sunday and kept to himself. Honestly, he was barely there half the time because he was always working. Yeah, that SHT was scary. After that event, I had horrible sleep paralysis for several nights. I kept dreaming that a black shadow would crawl into bed right next to me and strangle me. So I've had a lot of comments say that I'm lying about this event, but I have no reason to lie. This was really traumatizing for both my mom and I. My mom was also not legal at the time, so I'm guessing part of her was also scared she could be deported or something. Why did the cops let him go? I couldn't tell you, I'm not a cop. I don't know how those things work. Although they came and helped us, many cops in my town are very rude people. My mom has had a rough life and a lot of unjust things have happened to her. It actually makes me want to cry when I read comments saying that I'm lying because my mom almost got raped and possibly killed, and people think I made up a very detailed story for some damn upvotes. Grow up. Housemate coming home drunk after midnight from a Halloween party dressed as Jason from Friday 13th. Walked into my room by mistake in his full Voorhees costume and just stood in the middle of the room looking around trying to work out where he was. Woke me up as my door opened and I was frozen terrified for a good 30 seconds. Bought a lock for my door the following week. I lived with my oldest sister and her 2 daughters. Her youngest, 3 years old, was a sleepwalker. She was tiny, white blonde and liked to wear a white nightgown that was too big for her. Yeah, wake up to the sound of thumb sucking right next to my head, roll over and see the world's shortest ghost. We had a rooster who was pretty aggressive, but he watched the rest of the chickens. He was so aggressive though that only certain people could go near him, otherwise he'd attack and spur. For a while he had free reign of our yard, but we had to pin him because he'd attack people. One night we woke up to what sounded like a young girl screaming at the top of their lungs. We ran outside to see what it was, and old Bok, his name, was walking around decapitated. He'd picked a fight with a raccoon and lost, but that sound he made that night still haunts my dreams sometimes. This is my favorite story to tell. I'm absolutely terrified of a home invasion type of situation. I'll blame it on the copious amounts of true crime podcasts I listen to. So, when I'm home alone I constantly check the locks and sleep with a knife next to my bed. Husband goes out of town for 2 nights. First night all is good. Second night I check the doors, lock my bedroom door and go to sleep. Well, I wake up at around 3 a.m. to the sound of the door rattling a bit. I completely freeze, heart is racing, and I slowly reach for the light switch. I then start to think that maybe I don't want them to know I'm awake by turning the light on, so that maybe I can hide or grab my knife. Our indoor doorknobs, if you twist them hard enough, will just pop open, so I finally hear it click and the door just barely opens about 5 inches. I can see the outline of a man standing there, just barely lit from behind from moonlight coming in the living room sliding door. He just stands there, staring in the door, and I'm convinced I'm about to be murdered. And then the door opens a little bit more, and the man's outline starts to become more clear. The unmistakable sound of a pet getting ready to vomit on the floor. Terrifying. Back in my couch surfing days, I spent the night at a ranch in Enumclaw and woke up to a Great Dane humping my face. My dinkus neighbor was drunk and thought my apartment was his. He broke the lock on my door. He then opened up the door to my bedroom and scared the crap out of me at 1 a.m. I screamed and he apologized profusely and asked if I wanted to drink Modelo with him and his wife at their house. I went because they're nice, and they had tamales. When I was young-ish, I woke up to the sound of people quietly moving around downstairs when I believed I was home alone. Shitting myself and still confused from the sleep, I grabbed a telescopic wheel brace as the only available weapon. Hand on the door handle and ready to fight for my life, I hear my dad's voice, immediately realize my parents had got back from holiday earlier than I expected. The endorphin rush was intense. My cat giving birth on the corner of my bed. Apparently 100 other people have had this happen. Who knew having cats as pets was so common? 8-year-old son at the foot of my bed, vomiting blood. I used to live a few minutes away from Buncefield Oil Storage Facility. It was the 5th largest oil depot in the UK. On the morning of 11th of December 2005 it exploded. The explosion threw me out of my bed, and the doors of our house burst open. It still baffles me as to how no one died during that incident. The clear and obvious sounds of an animal in the bedroom. We had no pets. I'm in the UK, so my sleepy brain at first thought it was a rat, or several rats fighting for their lives. After some minor panicking, it turned out to be a pigeon trapped behind the boarded-up fireplace. Slept on the sofa that night. Exploding head syndrome, alternately termed episodic cranial sensory shock, is a benign condition in which a person experiences unreal noises that are loud and short, like a bomb exploding or a gunshot, when falling asleep or waking up. These noises are often jarring and frightening for the person, though harmless in and of themselves. Episodes have been known to create distress or impairment in the lives of individuals. It happens to me once or twice a year. It keeps things interesting. The loud sound of breaking glass from downstairs. Husband armed himself and crept downstairs. No intruder. One of the cats knocked over a centerpiece that exploded all over the floor. In college, I woke up to my glass closet doors violently shaking in my apartment. I 100% thought someone was in the closet. My roommate was working a night shift on campus and wasn't there, so I was alone. I basically sat in silent terror for an hour until I got enough courage to get up and go check. That morning, I got up and was reading the news and saw that there was an earthquake. I realized that is what I heard, and it made much more sense. I went to college on the east coast of the US, so it was really strange to have an earthquake. Babysitting a neighbor's kid's third shift at 14 years old. Woke up to her upstairs neighbor sitting in the bed where I was asleep. He had picked the lock on the back door. Sat there for a half hour, didn't make a sound. He just sat there, woke up and he had left. I had a Siamese mixed cat and one summer it started to sing in the middle of the night. Sounded like a crying baby right in my condo. Freaked me the hell out the first time I heard it. Fairly strong earthquake and kidney stone, not on same night, thankfully. Sleep paralysis, absolutely terrifying the first time, skeptical. I woke up to a bright orange window thinking it was just something strange or that I was just dreaming, went back to sleep. Woke up again some time later in realization and ran to tell my mother. The neighbor's shed was on fire and our fence and cherry tree were catching fire as well. I got up to go to the bathroom, and didn't turn my bedroom light on so I didn't see that anything was amiss. When I got to the toilet, I suddenly realized that my hands were covered in blood up to my elbows. It wasn't dripping wet but it wasn't dry either. When I washed my hands I checked everywhere, no injury. What the hell was happening? When I went back to my bedroom I turned the light on, and half of my pillow was covered in blood as well, almost exactly down the middle. I was living in a very dry area at the time, so nosebleeds were a common issue for me. That's the only time I've gotten one during my sleep though. An earthquake. But you see, I'm no California dweller who would half expect to die in the night on any given evening thanks to unforgiving geological processes. No, I'm in England, and an earthquake was a novel experience for me. I thought a train was approaching my house and even awoke, braced for impact. I was utterly terrified afterwards, as I'd taken the ground's solidity and reliability for granted. My heart racing so fast, I couldn't breathe. I was in the middle of a supraventricular tachycardia episode. My BPM was 210, had to go to the ER and get drugs to slow it down. I was absolutely terrified I was going to have a heart attack that night. Scary stuff. My laptop screen lighting up. It would be normal except I closed my laptop before heading to bed. Someone standing in the bedroom doorway, he flipped on the light then flipped it off. I woke my husband up and this guy walked out of the apartment. My husband ran out after him in his underwear. I went to the kitchen and got a knife and ran after my husband. Turns out, the woman who lived there before us had broken up with her boyfriend and moved without telling him or getting back his key. I guess he came back to see her, at 3 in the morning. About a year ago I was woken up at 4:30 a.m. by someone walking into my apartment. I live alone. Oddly, after the first split-second WTF? Startle, I wasn't at all scared. I guess I just sensed there was no danger. Turned out to be the wasted hookup of the guy in the apartment downstairs from me, and my cheap landlord had reused a matching set of front and back door locks on 2 separate apartments, so they had the same key. She was so disoriented and way more freaked out than I was. I ended up escorting her to the right apartment, and then she asked me for a hug. I have a new lock now. Then there was the time I woke up to the sound and shockwaves of a bomb blast destroying a nearby abortion clinic, but that's a different story. My f***ing friend standing over me in the middle of the night while sleeping at his place. Mother efker scared the life out of me. A mortar alarm while sleeping in a tent in Afghanistan. You have about 30 seconds to get out of bed, get fully dressed, get all your gear and weapon and get the FCK outside. The sound of someone coming in through the back door of my place at 3 a.m. I woke up to sound of scampering raccoon-like creature inside my room zooming about the night before Christmas. It then bounced on my bed, jumped off and ran out. Raccoon-sized, I followed it and it was laying on the couch and barked at me adorably. Apparently my parents got my sister a puppy and it had escaped during the night because it was lonely. They had it in an uncovered puppy kennel in the living room and he climbed out. The interesting thing is he didn't like my older sister and instead clung to me and he became my dog when she moved out and couldn't take him. Best friend to this day. The chick from The Grudge standing at the foot of my bed. Took me about 3 seconds of intense fear before I could move and get to the light. I freaked my partner out because I half fell and weirdly screamed/moaned on my way to the light switch. The amount of relief I felt once I was able to see was immeasurable. I had thrown my black pea coat over my vacuum. This happened around 3 a.m. and needless to say I didn't go back to sleep. I had so much adrenaline I cleaned my kitchen and meal prepped for the week. So that was nice lol. Sleeping at home, alone. I woke up one night when I rolled over and someone else's limp arm flopped across my chest. I freaked out, grabbed the arm, flung it away, and tried to scramble out of bed before realizing that it was my own arm. It had completely lost all feeling up to the shoulder. In college, I woke up one night to an absolutely blood-curdling scream and what sounded like someone ripping a piece of thick fabric outside my window, not right outside it, but like 10 to 20 feet away. 2 of my 3 roommates at the time also heard it and we all ended up in the kitchen talking about it for a bit before calling 911 to report it and then going back to bed. I couldn't, so I watched Fear and Loathing first and then eventually passed out once the sun came out. Walking to class the next day there was police tape in my neighbor's yard. We were on the corner, and this was the house behind us. Turns out the noise we heard was someone being fucking murdered. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share and we will see you in the next video.